introduced.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know what we're talking about yet.
So obviously, I know you through Tash and your Instagram's wicked, but I just wanted to talk to you today about like your training. Tash said that and I know that we spoke on Instagram about the fact that you train in like your seasons and stuff like that. So yeah, really like this, I just love this podcast to be like talking about like your journey with that and learning about your body and how that influenced your training, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
Is that all good with you?
Yeah.
So first of all, could you just give us like an introduction to who you are, what it is you do? Because am I right? You're training to be a stunt woman.
Yeah, I am. I bit off quite a lot more than I could chew with that one.
Start from the beginning. Introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
So my name's Daisy Hughes, and I think I'm like the essence of the jack of all trades. So I was formerly an actress.
Wow.
And then I trained at RADA, had an awesome training there, and had a really nice, fairly short career as an actor, and decided that straight out acting wasn't necessarily for me. Not for various different reasons, but I've always loved movement and physicality and challenging myself, and growing up on a farm with a dad who's a farmer, like he's always encouraged me to just get on and do the work and just leave the rest behind, no like networking, or you just get on, do your job, and then that's it. And that is not how the acting world worked.
Yeah, is there lots of like smoozing in the
I mean, it's a lot about luck, and it's very frustrating as an actor because you can't just get on and do the work. You got to wait for someone else. You're a communicator, and you facilitate amazing things, but you can't just get on and do stuff yourself. And I found that really frustrating. And so I sort of took quite a big leap, and I was like, well, I love like movement and challenging myself. And at this point I was really I was very weak and petite, had zero strength, and so was sort of not what you'd sort of think of as your average strong stunt woman. And I decided that I wanted to challenge myself to do this because in my head I was like, well, it's totally different in the stunt world, because you can either do it or you can't. It's not about the luck, or it's not about the, turns out there's a bit of that in every industry. So but so I did some research into the stunting world, and it was like, oh, you have to train for 5 to 6 years, it'll cost you thousands and thousands of pounds, and there's 6 disciplines to do it. And I was like, okay, well, if they say it's going to take me like 5 to 6 years, it'll probably take me like half as much. If they say it's going to cost me like 30 to 40,000 pounds, it's going to cost me half as much. And no, because I had to do like 2 years of unofficial training before I even got to training as a doing the proper training for the register, because just to get like strong enough and fit enough, and then I needed to change my source of income, because I knew I needed to train a lot. So I retrained as a personal trainer, and I'd already been doing yoga since I moved to London. So I'd been doing yoga like, I don't know, 7 years or something. So I trained as a yoga teacher as well. And then and that was to kind of fund my journey through. And then I love teaching people, and I love like facilitating people's journey through movement and how it makes you feel and stuff. So then that sort of became my main thing. But I sort of do both now. I teach and work in fitness full time, and then I train full time as well, and try and make that work.
I guess you're full on, right?
It's full on, yeah.
But am I right in that it hits different if you're doing what you love?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm super lucky because I don't really have to answer to anyone now. I do, but then that also brings on
Challenge. Yeah,
its own challenges, because you never switch off.
yeah,
And like you can't, if you're overloaded with stuff, you can't just be like, okay, why don't you be in charge of that and I'll take that, because you've got to do it all. And if you drop the ball, you can't, it's no one else's fault, it's just yours.
yeah.
But I like that kind of challenge. So yeah.
Yeah. So can we talk about your journey with fitness? Obviously, you being stunt, that it's, am I right in that it's quite a more masculine dominated industry, or is it still quite balanced?
No. It's getting more balanced, but yeah, definitely way more men than women. There are now some really cool girls coming through, but um, yeah, not even half as many.
And how did you find that? And was that, did that present challenges to you, or are you like, were you quite easy to deal with that sort of stuff?
Um, I sort of go around in circles with this. I have grown up with two older brothers, and so I've always tried to like keep up and catch up with them,
Yeah,
which has been really good because it's um I don't know, hardened me up, or like, given me.
I agree.
And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, have
I,
you got brothers?
yeah, so I was brought up in, I was the only girl in the family until I think, well, how, I'm 10 years older than my youngest sister. Yeah. So I grew up until I was 10. I was the only girl in the family. And
Yeah.
me, my brother, and my two cousins that all kind of like grew up together. So yeah, it was like, you play our game and you deal with us, or like, see ya.
Which is really good, because it kind of you get that mindset, but you're always like playing catch up because it is just different. And then I love adventure, so I love, like, my favorite thing to do is um like I cycled from John O'Groats to Land's End with two of my best guy mates, and then did, like, big hikes and stuff. And it just tends to be with guys, because my girlfriends have not had quite such an appetite for that stuff.
Yeah. Why do you think
um
that is?
yeah, well, I think it's changing now, but I think there's a bit of fear in, like, it's not nice being at the back, or it's not nice finding stuff difficult, and we all assume that everyone else finds stuff easier than we do. Um, and you've got to start somewhere, so the first time you do something, it's hard and it makes you nervous, and it's like stressful, but it feels amazing, because when you do it, you feel great,
Yeah.
because you've challenged yourself and you've surprised yourself. But the more opportunities you have to do that, the better you get at doing it, which is like, I think boys have, and I'm generalizing, but have a lot more of those opportunities from growing up than we do as girls,
Yeah.
because all those times of, like, even just like carrying stuff, or helping your dad fix something, or climbing to the top of the tree, you're from what I know, you're encouraged to do it as a boy more than as a girl. And so then you experience fear, because lots of those things, like climbing to the top of the tree, it is scary the first time you do it, but then you do it more and it's like, oh, it's actually fine. And so all those times you practice it, and by the time you grow older, you're more familiar with those feelings and they just feel normal.
Yeah.
Whereas we're a little bit more, I don't know whether it's sheltered, but it, it it's just different between boys and girls in that. And so by the time we get into our teens and 20s, we just assume that we're not good at that stuff and it's not for us, which is such a shame, because there's so much life in all of that stuff, and it's so invigorating. And that's why I feel so strongly about training women, and especially training women to get strong, because I hate doing burpees. There's a time and a place for them, but it's boring. And as girls, the way which we think we train, it's like, okay, I've just got to do like half an hour of cardio and then I'm done, or like an hour of cardio. And that is a really boring way to train, I find. Whereas you might go and play football, or you might, go out and, I don't know, or any number of different things as a guy that you just, it happens to be exercise, but it's more just you're having fun with your mates. And so I love encouraging and inspiring women to do that kind of training. And calisthenics, which is a form of movement that I love to teach, because it translates to beautiful strength. So kalos means beauty and stenos means strength. And so before, I just knew it as guys in the park with their tops off doing like pull-ups and
Yeah.
pull-ups and press-ups and stuff. And then when I learned that that is what it meant, I was like, oh, well, why aren't we all as girls doing this? Because that is like the perfect form of movement. And if we don't train in strength as we get older, like by the time you're 30, that's it for your bone strengthening. And then you're on a, really sad, but you're on a downhill journey from there, which is so bad because of our like hormones and everything. How depressing is that? So if we're not training to get stronger, then we're just increasing our brittle bones and likelihood for osteoporosis and all of those other things that mean in later life we can't do active things with our kids so much, or have that hunger for movement.
And what sort of strength training and training do you recommend for a woman? Because obviously I know you're really into training with your cycle, and obviously we have obviously a different hormone profile to guys. Is there a specific way or a type of training? I know obviously you talk about calisthenics, but how should maybe a female approach strength training?
It's a big question, and it's we can either look at it in one of two ways. Either it's really frustrating because all the studies to date have been done on men, and so all the training programs, literally everywhere you look, is based on a man and how to program for them, and it just doesn't work for us as women. And so we can either be really frustrated by that, or be really excited that at the moment there is a lot being done, and there's some really impressive ladies doing moving and shaking around this, and making sure that there are more studies being done on us in order, because previously, like at Olympic level or athletes, there were a lot more men at all stages, whether it be just for leisure or for competitive professionals. And now at all levels there are more women, from leisure stuff to being pretty much, I think it was like 51% male and 49% female for the last Olympics.
Oh wow.
I don't know whether that was last year or the year before, or the one before, but I think it was last year, what was the one that was meant to go ahead. And so there are more studies being done now in order to improve that, and then it filters down to all of us, like us everyday exercises. And so it is really exciting because there's a big movement towards how we should be training. Even just an example, I did a training program with my boyfriend on trying to get to 20 pull-ups, and it was this really cool program that was like, if you've got 7 to 9 pull-ups, we can get you to 20 pulls in 6 weeks. And it just did not work for me. I was set out and I was so optimistic, and my boyfriend and I had about the same amount of pull-ups, and I got to week 3 and then that was just it. I'd been progressing and then fell right off, and then I was like, oh, this is stupid, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I really got demotivated by it, whereas he was just progressing until the end of the 6 weeks. And that was a really good test for me, because it made me realize, if I got so demotivated by that, and I'm really good at adhering to programs, and I'm aware of you know, how they're built anyway, then how is it for everyone else? And if you are someone that only exercises a few times a month because you have every intention of exercising, you know, once a week or 3 times a week, but then kids, work, social stuff, all of those things crop up, and then you only happen to exercise on, you know, a couple of times a month, and it just so happens to be the times when you feel weakest because of where you're at with your cycle, then you're just going to get a really negative feel about exercising, and you're not likely to do it again.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to educate myself on all of that, and then my clients and students as well, because it's like a secret weapon. If you know how to work it, then it's, yeah.
Yeah, I found as well, it's when we look at, and I'm sure this comes back to the fact that you said about the studies, but when you look at, say, how a personal trainer might approach a female client, and it's like they're saying, I want to lose weight, I want to lose blah blah blah, I want to be like this, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. And I've seen it in gyms that I've worked at before, where I've actually seen them go, well, you're clearly not sticking to the diet if you haven't lost weight this week. And it's like, nah, if you know about the hormone profiles and you know about how we work, that's probably not, that actually isn't necessarily the case. And also, like, the reason why she didn't want to stick to your 1,400 calorie diet in the first place is because that's so little anyway. So yeah, it's really interesting that you say here, sorry, that you say that. So what sort of things have you managed, if we start off in, like, let's talk about, like, the training aspect. What have you learned about how to train with your cycle, and how have you found that actually, like, the education that you've learned has helped your training?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't know how familiar people are, so I'm just going to very quickly give like an overview of,
Yeah, please.
um, we a nice way of viewing the cycle, and this is not my way, it's I've learned this through other people. We've got the different phases, but Maisie Hill, who wrote Period Power, puts them into seasons, which
Love that
is,
way.
it's so good, isn't it? Because it just makes sense. Anyway, so we've got winter when we're on our periods, spring when we've just finished the period and we're coming towards ovulation, summer when we're ovulating, and then autumn when we're coming towards the next cycle. And that just like really changed things for me, because when I understood it in that frame, and that breaking the cycle down and then understanding what parts of the cycle tend to be more beneficial for what type of things, then I started to I was able to be kinder to myself, as it were, in terms of like when to really go for it with my training and when to ease off. And I think Maisie actually says in a book, like, nothing can flower all year round. And that makes so much sense. Like, you can't be on all the time, it just doesn't work. And the classical training programs of like 6 to 8 weeks on and then deload, like, we have that naturally built into us anyway, if we just change that to a shorter periods of training. And so there's different like that there's difference between how we should feel and how we do feel. So for example, in the first half of our cycle, in theory, we're better at strength training, or we're more successful in building strength and stacking that strength building there. And then in the second half of the cycle, we're more inclined to like endurance training because of the way the hormones work and our metabolism and stuff. That said, like, I definitely don't feel like strength training on like day 1 to 3 of my cycle, so I just don't do it. And then that's why I love to track, because there's one thing understanding what we're being told how we feel, and then because there's not enough research, or that the research hasn't been done long enough, then it's another thing how you actually feel. And so now I've been tracking long enough to know that by like day 4 to, I don't know, by day 4, I'm feeling good to like really go for it with my training, and I recover a lot quicker. Um, and and then towards the end of my cycle, it all starts to drop off.
Do you notice a time like around ovulation? What, because some people, what I've noticed, and a lot of my listeners will have are actually working to get their periods back. So I think it's they're learning to understand about their bodies a little bit more. But I found that some people really struggle around ovulation as well. How do you feel around ovulation? And do you notice that like where you drop from summer into autumn?
Yeah, so I'm keen. I did actually get a the natural cycles, to use the thermometer to be more specific and as to when I'm moving from one phase to another, but it didn't work for me. So I need to try that again. But I don't think I haven't got enough understanding to know when exactly I change between them.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, I have days when I think that I should be on fire, that I'm really burning, and then I'm like, what's going on here? Because also a big part of my training is dealing with fear, and at different moments in my cycle I'm more capable of dealing with that fear, because a lot of the stunt training that I do I find really scary. Like, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I find the idea of doing flips like pretty mental. And so some days I'm like a lot more able to just get on and do it and let my mind switch off and not overthink it, and other days I'm not. And I know when I'm in spring, like, that is me on. I'm like, I turn up at the gym and I'm like really ready to have a go, and I don't overthink it. And then, autumn, don't even get me started on trying to like run down the tumble track and do a back tuck and stuff. So yeah, but it is so different for all of us, and there's lots of things where we'll cross over, and then lots of things where we're all unique, and we've all got different lengths of cycles and different types of pain and all of that kind of thing. So I find, in terms of when I've got clients who I work with who don't have their cycle, as soon as you start like seeing it as your superpower rather than, I mean, it really upsets me how I just listened to a podcast from Bobby Clay, the runner, and she's like, she's amazing, but she's had such a rough journey, and she's really open about talking about how she she just was plagued by injuries from too many years of training and not having her periods, and like, that just shouldn't be happening, especially when you're in GB athletics. Like, that shouldn't have ever been a thing. And as sports people, often you don't want your period because it's an inconvenience, and I always felt like that. I've got a friend who's got the merino coil, and I went for the copper coil. I got it taken out because I hated it. But I was really jealous because her period stopped. I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. You don't have your periods and you can just train however you like, whenever you like. And now I need to have them, because I look forward to when I get my period, which is mind blowing, because that's just never been something that I wanted. Whereas as I come towards the end of my cycle, I'm just really ready for a break. And that's what I give myself from like the end of my cycle to the beginning of the next cycle. And I love that break now, because it makes me excited to start again and just feel like I close that chapter and have another fresh start. It's like getting New Year's Day, every month.
There's two questions. If you're okay, the second question will be about like the contraception, your experience with that. But just quickly, am I right in that saying then after like from day 4, you'll kind of like really smash it for like maybe like 2 weeks ish?
Yeah.
And then after that, you might scale it back, maybe focus a bit more on endurance, and then you'll completely rest while you're on.
Yeah, I don't. So I'll rest probably for 2 days before it. So I've got about 29 to 31 day cycle. So I'll rest from like 28 days to day 2.
Okay.
I'll probably like do some yoga or do something that makes me feel good, or do it. It sort of depends, but I try and do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
and because also what I find is I am more prone to injury towards the end of my cycle. So I have to sort of change the way in which I train then.
And does your food change around then as well?
Yeah, this is also something that so I've probably been tracking for a year now, and I'm still, I'm a bit more casual about the way in which I track. I sort of notice how I feel. I don't always write it down. I'm really good at doing my using the app when I'm in pain or when I feel shit, and when I feel good, I just don't use the app, which is
That's so common.
yeah.
It's like meditation when I first got into meditation, it's like, oh, I feel like shit. I need to do something about this, and then like you feel good, and you're like, oh, I don't need that.
Exactly. So there's days when I just can't stop eating. And then there's days when I'm just kind of pretty normal. And then there's days when I'm not like super hungry, but I just always eat anyway.
Yeah.
And the days when I can't stop eating, I'm a lot more chilled with that now, because I understand that I've just got to pick and choose my battles. Like I know, because I'm now a rational human being, that I don't binge all the time. But there are some days when my body clearly just needs that. And so I'm like, it's going to take up too much energy to be like, no, put it back. I'm like, right, just finish it. If that's what I want right now, I'm just going to finish it and then done. Don't overthink it, because that works best for me. And I don't want to get in my head about all that stuff. So I try and kind of just do as I feel on that, and know that when I'm coming up towards my period and I just want to binge all the time, that's fine.
And you mentioned like that you didn't want to go. Has that always been the case, or have you had to teach yourself that? Would there have been times before your cycle that you would have like kind of stressed out about the fact that you were like, oh my god, why do I want to eat so much, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, as women, we've like, I don't really know anyone who hasn't got some kind of chat in their brain about food. And so I yeah, I think before I'd like overthink it and be like, oh my god, what's wrong with me? Like I feel shit and I look shit, and I put everything on, and I hate what I look like, and I hate what I wear, and nothing, I don't feel good in anything. Um and before, my boyfriend would always be like, you're probably just about to get your period, and I would never know when it was coming. I just didn't have a clue. It's like, how have I gone for whatever, like over 10 years of my life with having a period, yet I never know when it is?
Yeah.
And which is madness in itself. Whereas now I can be that voice, and I can be like, Daisy, it's just because of this. And
Yeah.
you can't be on all the time. Like, you can't have a good training program all the time. You can't be super sociable all the time. We kind of go through peaks and troughs, and we're never we can never run at 100 all the time, that perfect quality that we often strive for, and just it doesn't exist. So just being a bit more forgiving about it, like you'd be with someone else, has helped me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Do you mind if we just jump back to the contraception side of
Yeah.
it? Are you happy to?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And what are your experiences with contraception, and like how you mentioned that like the coil just didn't work for you. Can we talk about that side of things?
Yeah. So like everyone, I did the pill, and then I went off the pill for ages. When I went back on the pill, I was a bit more in tune with myself, and I was like, this is just a nightmare. So I then changed onto another one. And I was actually I was touring with the Globe Theatre at that point, and I could not get out of bed. And I've always been quite an energetic person, and I didn't, it took me ages to work out that it was the pill. I just had no energy. I felt shit, and it really, really affected me. And I was away from my local GP, so I couldn't sort of go in and see whether it was normal or whatever. So I just came off it again. I think I might have tried one other after that, but then I just kind of like vetoed all pills. And then it's inconvenient not being on any form of contraception. So I went I went round in my head for ages whether I wanted the merino or the copper coil, and because I didn't start my periods till quite late, didn't want to I didn't want any kind of hormonal contraception where I sort of wasn't so sure where I was at with my cycle, because I've like, even though I've hated it, I've always loved actually having it, because it's a vital sign of health. You're okay if you've got it. And so I went for the copper coil, which was like, I got my periods have always been like fairly like whatever 4 to 5 days long, like painful for the first couple of days, but actually fine after that. And when I got the coil, they would last 10 days. I would not be able to sleep at all. I'd like go to the loo and just rock on the loo, because I didn't know what else to do. Because when you feel like the only way I can describe it is like a corkscrew being shoved up. Oh my god, it was so bad. And you sort of like, I didn't need the loo, but I didn't know what else, like how it was horrific. And then in terms of training, they were so heavy as well, and it was just impossible to I think I went on with it for like 11 months or basically a year, which was also, unfortunately, as we just get on with these things because we know that everyone has difficulty with their periods, or like, so you spend way too long being okay with something that's not actually okay. It's not okay to be in that much pain. So I really shouldn't have been on it for that long. And then I got it taken out, and I think I had like 4 bladder infections while I had it, which is also really common, I think, when you've got a coil. Yeah. So then I got it taken out, and thank God.
Yeah. And now you're not on any hormonal
I'm not on anything, no. And actually, what I've noticed is a lot of my friends have started to go the same way, which is mad to think that we just all blindly like use the pill for so long. And
Yeah, I find that I just remember being younger of like it was just the done thing to do, and if a girl didn't go on the pill, it was like what? And I'm gonna actually say I think if I hadn't have gone on the pill, in the it would have been like, what, are you frigid?
yeah.
And like, so I had like similar experiences as I went on a pill and it sent me nutty, like to the point that I couldn't handle it. I was just so emotional. So I
Mm.
went to the mini pill, and it completely got rid of my periods. And I felt fine, but I just felt numb. So like I just didn't, I felt as though I just didn't really care about anything. And but I wasn't having a period and I was protected, so that's and then I got like really into fitness and what would have shut down my hormones anyway to that extent. Then I remember changing back to and the pill I was on, and again I was just like, god, I can't cope with these moods, to the point that it would make me laugh. I would snap and I'd be like, oh my god, I have no idea why I just did that. And then yeah, I came off completely. My period, I had amenorrhea, so like I then didn't get my period back for like 2.5 years or something. And now would you go back on anything?
No, I don't think so. Like, I'm really lucky because I've got a like just the best boyfriend who who makes those kind of decisions so easy, because um he I think I always felt bad before, or I felt like obliged, um or like it was going to be, it's not as nice, or like all those different things. And I think probably when you're new in a relationship, it is awkward, or like using natural cycles or using condoms, or those other, and it's a bit nerve-wracking, because you don't want to have a slip or something. But I think when you're in a happy relationship, it's a lot easier to make those decisions, because you feel supported, and also you feel comfortable enough with each other that all those conversations are not awkward. Whereas when you're new to a relationship, or you're dating, or you're just on your own a bit more, and it's more stressful, because what are they going to think? Or if something slips up and you get pregnant or something, then that's such a burden on your own to deal with. So yeah, I think we've got a way to go with sorting that stuff out.
I do. I think every time I get asked this on Instagram, I always say, and I do think it's easier for me because I talk about it so openly on the internet. So if I was to ever date or anything, it's like, well, this is what I do, and this, so like the conversation's easier for me to have. And but I always encourage people, like, just like, if it's part of your story that you, so like I said, a lot of the girls might be trying to get their periods back, like that's part of your story, and own it and say like, yeah, so and talk, like try to make it as like not as taboo as possible without scaring them off maybe.
Yeah, also it's just not a big deal. It's just
It's
like, you can have a rocking sex life and not be on any form of contraception. Like you've got to, as you say, own it, and be confident about what you've decided is important to you. And that is, I mean, I wish I'd have, like, I knew that, like, from a younger age, because it's also, it's so I respect when I can see girls who just own what they are, and are not afraid of, because not everyone's going to like you, and if they don't, or if they don't appreciate what you've decided is an important choice for you, then they need to get out and go, way far away, because that's not right. But it takes some time to grow into that sometimes.
definitely.
um yeah.
Do you find that being in like the acting industry, how was that? Because I'm sure they're like I don't know whether you were like whatever part that you were playing, that's, I'm sure that they're not very lenient on like, oh, she's on her period, or like, oh, she was exhausted from being on the pill. How did you manage that?
I just got on with it. I didn't. I. You can. You can. It's more you than anyone else. Like, when you're going through stuff like that, probably everyone else sort of just thinks like you're just a bit like low, or like you're just not being very sociable. But it's how you feel is huge, and other people probably don't notice it so much. So I think I was just like sleepwalking through it a bit, and it affected me more. I could still do my job. I've never like, also I've I wouldn't want to make a big thing about that, because I'm really as much as I like to talk about all of this stuff, I also feel really strongly about us being like strong women, and that we're not seen as these like weak figures who are knocked sideways by a period. Like, it does happen, and we all have very different experiences of that. But yeah, I didn't want to be seen as like fragile in that industry.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I can definitely relate to that. And I often see that there's such a fine line between, you know, wanting to be taken seriously and not viewed as that like typical female, like she can't handle it sort of thing, and then also like completely shutting down our femininity, because like we said, like our period is our power, and like if you can work with it and you can learn to work with it and embrace it, and like you can really tap in, like I feel like females especially have such a more heightened intuition, and that's because we have our cycles, that we have to listen to our bodies. Um and I feel like there's such a blurred line, isn't there, or such a fine line, should I say, of like being like, yeah, this strong woman, of being like, no, 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 like we don't need you, we can do our own thing, but also not suppressing that side of us. Do you feel like how do you keep that balance?
Oh, good question. I absolutely love like juxtaposition of being strong and soft at the same time. And I think that's why like when my casting when I was an actor was always like the petite, small, like I guess like fragile, like that kind of casting. And so I was always very aware that that was what I needed to look like. And then when I sort of went to the other, when I decided that I needed to get strong, and that was like really important move that I made, it was quite hard to I found it really challenging because I started to look different. And like bulky is the word that we all fear, I like. But when you start training in strength, you don't necessarily get bulky. You might feel like that for a bit because when your body changes, it feels weird because you're so used to sort of trying to fit in that box that you've given to yourself to look like. And I think from when I was like 21 to whatever 25, I sort of still thought I needed to fit into all my clothes that I turned into my 20s with, because that was like who I was and what I looked like. And I hadn't really, I like hadn't really grown into a woman by then because I was quite slow to develop. And so that was just that was such a hindrance for me, because you like change is a brilliant thing. Like I always want to change. I think someone told me once, like, you've changed, and I was so upset by it. I just thought it was such a horrible thing for them to say. And now, like, I absolutely love it. I love to just change all the time. I want to keep changing. I think it's the best thing ever. I keep challenging myself because, like, well, I don't want to stay where I was today. What's that? What good is that for?
My mum sent me this screenshot from Facebook today, and she just texted me it and said, just a reminder, and it's like a caterpillar that says you've changed, and then like a butterfly saying we're supposed.
Oh,
And,
I love that. That's so nice.
and then
Um,
she also sent me another thing. I don't know why she was obviously on a roll, saying like. Um, recognize when a phase, a job, a life stage, or a relationship is over and let it go. Allow yourself to gracefully exit situations you have outgrown. Moving on doesn't have to be a catastrophic, dramatic event. You can simply choose to move forward with peace and clarity. And I feel like that's so nice when it comes to like change and like embracing, like you said about like changing like embracing the fact that your body shape has changed and you're wearing different clothes and stuff. And it's like, if we try to force it and we try to resist it, it's only going to make the journey harder, right?
oh, that's so nice. I love that. I'm going to get you to send that to
Yeah,
me.
I will do.
So nice. Yeah, and it's so freeing. Like if you go to a festival or if you go to something, the person that you're drawn to is the person who's just going at it, like who doesn't care what they look like, doesn't care who's like what anyone else is doing. They're just doing them. And you're so drawn to that because that is such a freeing state. And that is why we love, like, going out. I love going out dancing or live music because it just takes me into that place.
Yeah.
And it's like people are drawn to that. And when you're so afraid of change, for example, if you haven't had your period for ages and you that's scary, because then what are you going to have to change to get it, or and what will that mean, and what will you look like? And it seems like such a big thing, and if you haven't had it for a while, it feels huge, whereas it can be like the best thing ever. I'm so glad. It was a sticky spot, and it often is when you go through change. It can be messy, but when, like, with the strength that I have now, it feels amazing. Like I love the fact that I can do so many things, and I view my physique on what I can do, not what I look like. Like how I look is a byproduct of what I can do, which is why I love to train people or encourage people to train in skills rather than like I want to lose weight or I want to look like this or whatever. Because when you train in skills, your mindset is in a different place. like, oh my goodness, now I can do this, and 6 months ago I couldn't do that, and that becomes more important than the physique, and then often, you know, you're stronger and leaner and fitter because of that. And it's when you it, when you can shift your perspective to that, that's like such an awesome place to be.
I totally agree. And I think that is like the perfect place to leave it there, because I'm sure everyone's going to be like, oh my God, we want more. Where can
Oh.
everyone find you, see you training, learning about your training, that sort of thing? Where can everyone find you?
So I've got a website, which is www.daisyhughes.com. I try and keep that as updated as possible with my classes and stuff. I teach a free weekly Wednesday morning yoga club, free or donation to Women for Women International, which is part of my mission, to spread the word about what they do, because they are an awesome, awesome charity. And then I'm on Instagram, Daisy Hughes, and I sort of try and keep my stunt stuff on there, although I've been a bit down low because we've been in lockdown, so I haven't been able to do so much of that. But yeah, that's where I sort of keep all my stuff.
Yeah, that's wicked. Thank you so much for
Thanks
finding
so
time. I
much,
really
Lily.
appreciate it. Guys, please make sure you go out and check out Daisy across all of our platforms and join one of her classes if you can. I definitely will be once we're out of this hellhole of a pandemic. Thanks, Daisy.
Awesome. So nice to chat, Chloe.